立法會主席。
President of the Legislative Council. Dr. KWOK. Thank you, President. I have listened to many speeches made by the loyalists, and I can't help but to respond to some of them. And this is from Mao Zedong. Know your enemies well, and you have to handle the internal conflicts among the people properly. And here's the remarkable comment from Mr. Mao. That was a comment made on the 27th of February 1957. Before us, there were two conflicts between the enemies and us, and conflicts among the people internally. We have to handle our internal conflicts properly. Internal conflicts cannot be handled with force. And these unworthy disciples of his, where are they? And you want to use the police to handle internal conflicts? Well, your old teachers would turn in their graves. And the loyalists aren't really well versed in the teaching of their masters. In 1927, the Chinese Communist Party was established with the help of the International Communist League. So who were colluding with foreign factors. The PRC was founded with the help of the Soviet Union. So these are illiterate followers of the CCP. Well, actually, your old master taught you that you should handle internal conflicts in the proper way. We have lost 2% of GDP. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars. Property prices are falling. Restaurants are being closed down. Businesses are failing. And you have lost your seats in the DC. The biggest culprits are Carrie Lam, and Undersecretary, your boss, Secretary for Security, and Esper J. If not for them, for the three of them, we wouldn't be in such a economic problem. So you do understand who your enemies are, and then we should tackle our enemies together. If they agreed to set up the Commission of Inquiry, they would be the winners. They would be the big winners. You would have sided with reason. And the trio, including the CE, were the culprit. We have given you lots of opportunities, and you have failed to seize any of them. And if they set up, the royalists agree to set up the COI, well, they would be met with rounds of applause outside the chamber. They keep saying that we have failed to dissociate ourselves with rioters. But now the loyalists have the biggest opportunity to dissociate themselves with the CE and her lot. They have been complaining that they have lost their seats, they have lost their popularity due to the wrongful behavior of the CE and senior officials. Well, now we have given you this opportunity to realize where the contradiction and where the controversies are. is due to the extradition bill and also the trio, including the CE, the S4S, and the S4J. The facts are so clear, there's no need to argue about the causes anymore. We all know what they are. And I don't have to repeat arguments that my colleagues have already made. Were very abundantly clear. And please take note of this message downstairs. If a person breaks the law, it's a problem of law and order. If hundreds of thousands of people break the law, it's a question of politics. On the 12th of June, thousands of people came here to prevent the passage of the bill. The police officers were all in full gear. They were well protected. How much damage can you do to these people in full protection gear? And as a digression, I will also mention the shot in New City Center incident. Well, the officer in question was alone. He left the team, and that's why he was attacked. He was wounded. If we do not carry out the investigation we ask for, how can we do justice to our people? Don't think that the conflicts would just go away. They would continue. The problems will continue until the government finally decides to deal with them. And now even teenagers know that we have so-called rogue officers or black police. And is that not enough to wake you up? And also there's another message also found in MOT. Here's what people wrote there. In this world, well, we have only tyranny. We don't have any rioter. If you set the clock back a few months ago, you don't find any rioter, any violence, anyone wearing masks charging at the police. Because people were struggling with high property prices, there were insufficient school places or a degree program places. And we are among the worst in terms of the happiness index ranking in Asia. So the government should come up with solutions. As Xi Jinping has criticized Carrie Lam that you should deal with the deep-rooted problems. So instead of solving those deep-rooted problems, she created more. So why should the loyalists try to shield Carrie Lam or Teresa Chang or Johnny and the police force? Mr. Michael Tin wrote to Han Zheng that an independent commission of inquiry should be set up. So I give him credit for that. But he keeps changing his mind, and sometimes sometime later he also said that there would be no need to do that. So don't sit on the fence if you support democracy. Stay where you are, where it is right. There's still time for you, Mr. Michael Tin. Well, don't act like other loyalists. Not all loyalists are so bad that they are beyond redemption. But no, Mr. Michael Tin is not here. And sometimes he doesn't vote in our motions. So I would like to appeal to him to vote in favor of this motion to set up an independent committee. The June 12 incident was a turning point. Well, actually, this motion of Mr. Andrew WAN should have been discussed on the 3rd of July, but we know that the social division was so serious and the government failed to give any proper response to communities' aspirations and requests. And that's why we can only discuss their motions today. And still, the government is still putting up excuses against public opinion. The great majority of our people have made their views very clearly known through the polls in the election. And then why do we need to investigate? Because the police have taught us that in this world there are undercover agents. We don't know what these undercover officers did, or the worst thing that they might have done. Or perhaps they have thrown petrol bombs at their own officers or their own colleagues. Because you send undercover agents. Well, we must investigate what they did with such an underhand tactic. It may be just a prod to shift the blame to protesters. Well, it is quite within what the government is capable of doing, what the police force is capable of doing. So, if you want to talk about responsibilities, I want all the anti-democratic loyalists to come back to listen. If they didn't want to bulldoze everything at the Bills Committee, and they gave the government the audacity to try to get the bill passed without public support. That's why they should bow to the public and apologize for their lending their support to the whole exercise. They should support the setting up of the independent commission. Many people ask, when are we going to see the end of this? Well, the answer is in the hand of the government. If Carrie Lam's administration and the Beijing government behind her continue with the current tactic and practice, the situation won't de-escalate. Well, they have failed to heed the advice of Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong said, you cannot handle the conflicts among our own people by force. We must resolve the conflicts among our people before we can move on. Why don't we give Hong Kong a new chance to move forward? Some have claimed that we are trying to pursue the Americans and other people involved. At that time, we said that the U.S.-China trade negotiation was going on. We shouldn't do anything that would hurt Hong Kong's trade interests. And the loyalists didn't heed our advice, and that's why we are in such a big trouble. Even for you and you people over there, there would be no need for Xi Jinping to reprimand our CE. 1 million and then 2 million people took to the street. Were they too idle? Were they too idle to have to have the time to do something else. We should give Hong Kong justice. We could give Hong Kong people justice by carrying out the independent investigation so that the chaotic situation can be stopped. They may not listen to us, but the ultimate responsibility rests with you people. Carrie Lam, John Lee, and Royalists are to blame. Thank you.
Secretary for Security. President, I thank members for their speeches. I'd like to respond to points raised by members during the debate. First is about the use of force by the police. A number of members mentioned the way the police used force. In fact, the use of force by the police is a very prudent decision. The police will not use force arbitrarily. They will only use force when carrying out their statutory duty and when the circumstances arise. They will only use appropriate force, and they have to adhere to very strict guidelines and codes. Once the objective of using force is achieved, the police will stop using force. As the Secretary for Security said in his opening remarks, on the 12th of June, there were series of violence acts in the vicinity of Queensway. Some rioters removed bricks from pavements. They took railings on the roadside to create road barricades. Some, in an organized manner, charged towards police lines, and some even used dangerous weapons such as metal poles, mills barriers, and wooden planks to attack police officers. The situation was both chaotic and dangerous. Everyone who watched the TV could see the situation, and members of the police present were subject to serious threat. In order to control the violent scene and to stop the situation from escalating and to disperse the crowd, the police used appropriate force to enforce law and order. The force used by the police was in response to serious violence displayed by the rioters. If the police had not taken timely action, the violence would only have spread, causing more serious damage and threats to people's safety. I have to stress that if there were no violent acts to disrupt public order, there was no need for the police to use force at all. Since the 9th of June, Hong Kong has had over 1,000 public events related to the Fugitive Offenders Bill, and many of which ended in violence. As at the 16th of December, over 2,600 people have been injured, and the riots were frequent and widespread, and the escalation of violence was worrying, and they've already created threats to lives and properties, and therefore the police have no choice but to take decisive action to stop the violence and restore peace in society. Frontline police officers had been steadfast in the clashes in the past few months. Frontline officers faced unprecedented threats. They were subject to doxing and cyberbullying, and even their family members had to live in fear. As at the 20th of November, the Privacy Commissioner has received a total of 4,200 doxing cases. The victims include police officers, legislators, and people with different political views. Over 480 police officers have been subject to different injuries. Some had his finger bitten off, and one was hurt by petrol bombs and by corrosive liquid, by a neck slashed by a cutter. injured by arrows and hard objects and sharp objects. The police are in a dangerous situation and they must take necessary action to protect themselves. And under such circumstances, it is appropriate and necessary to use force. We understand the community's view about the deployment of tear gas. Tear gas is among the lowest level of force that can be deployed by the police in dealing with violence. The purpose is to disperse the violent protesters so that they would temporarily lose the ability to charge and to cause damage, and also to create a safe distance between the police and protesters so as to reduce the possibility of harm to both parties. Or inhalation of tear smoke will cause temporary discomfort and will not bring permanent harm. According to the hospital authority, some members of the public sought help from A&E departments of hospitals after inhaling tear gas, and most of them could be discharged immediately after some emergency treatment. Regardless of the force used, the police will, where possible, take care of the safety of the community. Where the police deploy force or tear gas will hinge upon where the violence and law-breaking behavior was. And before taking operation, the police will try to use various channels to discuss with organizations such as building management office and shop operators and RCGs to remind them to take appropriate action to take appropriate arrangement. And during operation, through social media, the police will remind members of the public to stay in a safe place and to close all doors and windows. The second issue is about the police relations with the media. We have a free press in Hong Kong. The police respect the media's right to cover events and will not affect and will not so long as they do not disturb their operation. As I said in my opening remark, the police and the media have the respective duties to discharge, and they should have mutual understanding and cooperation. And in a difficult and ever-changing situation, the police will have to take appropriate action in order to arrest the culprits, and journalists at the scene should remain at safe distance away from the police so as to ensure their own personal safety and will not obstruct police work. We respect the media. However, in the past few months, we cannot ignore some facts first. And during the last few months, the police have seized some fake press cards. Secondly, during operations, there were people wearing press vests claiming to be reporters, but not really employed by the organization they claim to be. And some also left the scene as soon as they were questioned by the police. There were people wearing press-like vests, forming human chains, and they stood between the police and also the rioters. And I think these are not the appropriate behavior of professional journalists, and what they have done has seriously affected police operations. In fact, although the police were very tight with manpower during clashes, they tried their very best to deploy force media liaison cadres to take care of the needs of the press. Even on the 12th of June, when manpower was very tight, the police arranged for 32 members of their force media liaison team to be present to assess the work of journalists. The police will continue to maintain cooperation and communication with the media, and they will deploy their media liaison team to be present at public events to facilitate the work of the press. The third point is about identifying police officers on duty. Now, regardless of their positions, there is always a way to identify the identity, to verify the identity of police officers. In recent public events, uniformed branch officers would wear an ID number or operation sign number or call number. And where possible, police officers will display their warrants or ID number or the operation call sign where possible. For the last, because the public are concerned about the showing of identification by police officers as seen. So it is a way to identify police officers participating in an operation and can verify the identity of the officer concerned. This will, in general, enhance the effectiveness of the police operations. It can also help the public to identify the police officers and to safeguard police officers' privacy. And I think this is a balance. The police will continue to listen to views of police officers and the community, and in due course, the arrangement will be reviewed. Fourthly, some members mentioned the work of the IPCC and KWOK. As at 10th December, reportable complaints and also notifiable complaints were 493 and 893 respectively. The investigation of each and every case will be done by KWOK, and 120 observers will observe the work as independent observers. IPCC has already issued a statement saying that it will do its utmost and focus on events that took place on the 12th of June, July 21st, and August 31st. In January, an interim report will be submitted to the government so as to enable the public to find out the truth about these incidents. This will help the government to decide the way forward. The CE and Davos have already said openly that they will do their utmost to support the work of IPCC. IPCC's recommendations will be very carefully studied, and the government will then decide on the way forward. The work of the IPCC is very complicated. I urge members of the public allow time and room for IPCC to complete this very challenging task. On the 4th of September, the CE proposed 4 measures to start a dialogue with the community to resolve deep-seated conflicts to restore social order. First, on the 23rd of October, the Secretary for Security formally withdrew the Fugitive Offenders and Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill 2019 in this council. Secondly, the SAR government fully support the work of the IPCC. In September, 2 new members were appointed to join the IPCC. Thirdly, the CE and her accountability team will continue to engage in a very sincere dialogue with people from different sectors with political views in order to have a better understanding of the deep-seated problems in society and to find a practical solution. Fourthly, taking reference from the experience in the UK and other places, the SAR government has invited community leaders, experts, and academics to form an independent review committee to examine and review the deep-seated problems in Hong Kong and to examine the causes for the events that happened in the past few months and to make recommendations to the community. Since the event, the Security Bureau has been working very closely with discipline services in order to stop the violence. The CS4A has very effectively and expeditiously found measures to tackle the ever-escalating violence and has chaired an interdepartmental task force to monitor, to disseminate information, and to dispel rumors. And it is now working very hard to support the work of the force. We are faced with a very serious situation. Government departments must work in concert, and the government will, through its senior management, enhance cooperation with government departments so that we can respond to development of social events rapidly, so that we can, so the community can restore to normal as soon as possible. Violent demonstrations have caused tension between the government, the police, and also the community. And there are also fake news and untrue accusations against the police, and the government will continue to use different channels to clarify and dispel rumors, and the police will work hard to communicate with different sectors, enhance its transparency so the members of the public understand their operations. We have freedom of assembly and rallies and demonstration in Hong Kong, but however, freedoms are subject to restrictions, and under the Basic Law, the decision to prosecute by the DOJ must be free from interference. In the past few months, violent demonstrations have been escalating, and people's freedoms and safety have been at risk, and people's daily lives and freedoms to commute, to go to work, to go to school have been affected, and people's lives and properties have been threatened. Everyone is equal in front of the law. For people who have breached, who have committed serious offenses regardless of their gender, age, and background, should be punished. The rule of law is the cornerstone of success of Hong Kong. All men are equal before the law. No one can use violence in order to get their political objectives, and we must not glamorize or rationalize violence, nor should we condone any form of violence, because this will only incite and fuel more violence. If we continue to condone such behavior and ask the government not to prosecute and not to pursue responsibility, will send out very wrong signal to the community. People may think that violence is a solution, and this will totally damage this important core value of Hong Kong, which is the rule of law. In Hong Kong, we have freedom of expression, gatherings, assemblies, and protests. However, they are not totally unrestricted. And the rights are clearly settled in IPCC and also the BORO. These freedoms can be subject to lawful restriction to ensure public safety and to safeguard the rights and interests of others. And we have such provisions in the Public Order Ordinance. The ordinance allowed people to take part in assemblies, rallies, and demonstrations. At the same time, there is the need to ensure public safety and order, and therefore all such public events must receive a no objection principle from the police in order to go ahead in a peaceful manner. Mr. Jeffrey Ma, Chief Justice of CFA, said in 2016 that the importance of the law is based on a simple concept. The law is to respect rights and freedoms of individuals, and it should also protect the rights and freedoms of other people. This is a very important point. Some people would only have regard for their own rights and freedoms, and they have no or little regard for others who are living and working in the same community they are in. Unquote. President, in the past few months, we have seen clashes in demonstrations. Some rioters just beat up people who held different views from theirs. They use vigilantism, and some rioters set fire to shops. They committed vandalism. They are barbaric. We cannot just call them renovation or vigilantism. We have to point out that these are serious violence and they are ugly acts of violence. We have to reflect on ourselves. The past few months of violence has damaged democracy and a society with plurality, and such behavior has bullied other people and disrupt other people's daily lives and is trampling on the rights of others. I hope society can restore peace and calm as soon as possible, and we should resolve matters showing respect for one another. Thank you. I urge members to oppose the motions.
I now call upon the Honourable Andrew WAN to reply. Mr. Andrew WAN. President, there is hard and strong evidence showing that the police is using brutality to stop the riots. This is the 35th anniversary of the signing of the Sino-British Joint Declaration. In this chamber today, we see the pillars of Hong Kong crumbling. We can see our core values vanishing. And we are here to criticize a governance team that was regarded the world's best and a police force that was Asia's finest before unification. But today, it is very sad, really, and very sarcastic indeed for us to be criticizing these two parties. A lot of us still remember what happened on June 12 clearly. Indeed, that was the first wound for this anti-extradition movement. This is not a simile because people actually bled and some are expected to have lost their lives. A heavy price was paid by the public. Many young people suffered under police brutality. They were bleeding all over, and this was the creation of the executive, the police, and the loyalists. How can you be saying what you said today on the 12th of June if Carrie Lam saw 1 million people marching and she had responded to people's views, then there would not have been June 12th. But then with June 12th, we saw a series of more serious police brutality, but this did not or was not plucked from thin air. Why did the police break rules and regulations? Why did they not wear their warrant cards? Why did they flout the PGO? What were they afraid of? What were they trying to hide? And in the process, why so many policemen did this and it was not rectified after such a long time? Why things have become so serious? Someone behind must have given orders. Someone must be condoning this. How come the loyalists say this does not have to be investigated? President, to me, hiding one's identity is a serious issue in this incident. This is the Lucifer effect. This is because you know there will be no responsibility to be taken, no consequences, so the policemen could enforce the law in whatever way they would like to. And without an identification number, they were even wearing helmets and masks because they knew they would not be investigated, and the loyalists and the Secretary for Security would be condoning their acts, so they had nothing to fear. How come you could shoot unarmed civilians? How come you use batons to beat up citizens who were just walking by, and you were beating the head more often than not? Why could you fire tear gas rounds against people in an illegal assembly? And why is it that citizens and members who were just passing by to know what was happening would be given pepper spray? I cannot exhaust this litany of the evil acts of the police. The administration and the police have lost all their credibility. Therefore, we must conduct a comprehensive investigation into police brutality. Let me go to PGO chapter 29. There should be 6 different levels. First, verbal threatening until life-threatening attack. So there are 6 levels. On June 12, we saw some small-scale conflicts. That is not contested. But does it mean that this can rationalize what the police did to people who were just standing by? Why would violence was used on these people who were just bystanders, and people were shot at without a warning? I don't care what rounds were used. After all, you resorted to live rounds anyway. So I would be questioning you whether shots were fired on June 12. All these were documented in 29.2. It says that whenever force is used, police officers must reveal their identity and issue warnings. Did the police do this? Was this done on June 12? No, but then it was not rectified. In fact, this became even more serious. President, when I talk about force, I'm not talking about the 7 policemen who beat up a protester in a dark corner. That would dim in the face of what we see today. They were shooting people in the head, and this is the Lucifer effect that I was talking about. President, loyalists say we target the police. Carrie Lam said something similar. She said the police was enforcing the law in a just and fair manner, and it was only right for them to be enforcing the law. I think that is nonsense. Mr. Siu Kao-fai was correct just now. What are we asking to you? We are just asking you to enforce the law in a lawful way. If you do so, we would have nothing to say about it. But then you are not abiding by the law when you enforce the law now. You impose police brutality on innocent citizens. You are not following the police force ordinance and the police general orders. It's as simple as that. Undersecretary, are the PGO still real? Aren't the procedures to be followed? You have flouted the rules in the PGO. Why not admit it? Why don't you allow us to investigate? Why do we have the PGO? As you know, the PGO is there for a good reason. The rules and regulations exist for a good reason. If the loyalists are a little reasonable, you will understand why. Because we are talking about disciplined forces who have been trained and they have been given public power to use lethal weapons, and they are fully armed. If they do whatever they want, they do not follow the law, they can kill people. And they would say they kill people lawfully. Of course, this has to be regulated. The exercise of public power should be regulated. If you don't have that common sense, you cannot be a legislator. The police are breaking their own rules. Has the police force flouted rules and regulations? If you have, then we should take you to task. Isn't that only right? Is it right for you to enforce the law in an unlawful way? Why is Mr. John Lee not here? Why is he hiding? Why does he only send the undersecretary to bear the brunt? If you have done wrong, don't you have to come forward and accept penalty? What about the 6,000 who have been arrested? Some of them were just walking home and they were arrested for riot. If you say somebody flouted the law so the police could do anything they want, then What if the police who are breaking the law, does it mean they do not have to follow the PGO? The Undersecretary said there were fake reporters. Well, then you can act according to the law. Does it mean you can beat people up if there were fake reporters? What about policemen who do not wear a warrant card? They can be regarded as fake police. Does it mean they can be beaten up? They have flouted the PGO. Why do you say it's not right for me to investigate into it? Is it right for them to beat up people, whether it's you or the secretary? Do you know what you are talking about? The few of you had been policemen for many years. Today you are the secretary and undersecretary for security. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? John Lee said that these few motions are not necessary. He appealed to members not to support them. Going to the root of the June 12 incident and to know who gave the orders and to know who condoned police brutality, who brought about this storm to Hong Kong, you call that unnecessary? Going at certain high-level police officers giving the orders, telling policemen they did not have to wear their warrant card and UI. You don't think it's necessary? You don't think it's necessary for us to put an end to the Lucifer effect? President, what is unnecessary is John Lee, Teresa Zhang, Carrie Lam. We don't need you. Your existence is not necessary. President, I still have about 5 minutes. I'd like to respond to some members who have spoken. They really opened my eyes, and I must retort them. The loyalists only know how to press buttons here. Yesterday, I thought that they were just hiding and running away, but today, that's better. Some of them spoke up, but they only put forward distorted arguments. Just now, Dr. KWOK complimented Mr. Michael Tin, but I won't. On the face of it, he had a point, but in the end, he said he would not support us. And I think he was playing a clever trick. He said that this is not the ideal way to do it, and the wording had a stance, so the motion should not be established. Well, of course we should have a stance when we move such a motion. Of course, I think you're not right, so we set up the select committee, then you can always join, and you would outnumber us. What is it for you to fear? And then he said the wording is not satisfactory. Then come up with your own motion. Don't you want to please both sides? No, this doesn't work anymore, Mr. Michael Tin. I thought he had understood it after the DC election, but then he's not the most outrageous. The next one is Anne Chang. She scolded the administration for saying for not stopping the extradition bill because 1 million people marched in the street. But then let us look back. The DAB was the cheering team for the bill at that time. So what are you talking about, DAB? Michael Lok said that our motion would amount to persecution of the police, and it should not just be the police, but other parts and parties. Well, look at our motions. We have included other related matters. Can you read our motions? You say you want to get at the truth. Then, of course, we can set up a selectcom, and you can always outnumber us. And you said true gold fears no fire. Then you should set up the select committee, join it, and return justice to the police. And then I need to spend some time on Priscilla Leung. Priscilla Leung gave a beautiful speech. She said we should not just target the police, we should investigate everybody. But then she would be moving a 5th motion. And she is not going to investigate everybody. I think she is again playing a political trick. And she will be penalized by her voters again. When she spoke, she said that she would like to investigate into everybody. But then her own motion did not include everybody. Well, you can include the police at least, because Mr. James To is going to amend her motion, and let us see whether she would support the amendment by Mr. James To. And then Holden Chow, he said, the storm of the last 6 months hurt Hong Kong's livelihood, so it was a major matter. That's true. You should commit suicide, loyalists. Who brought about this? Who shot the first shot? Not you, but DAB, because you supported her, so she did the trick. I don't know how you colluded, but you were definitely a part of it. You feared the setting up of a select committee. Why? Why would that be a problem? When we have a select committee, we can get the truth. Just now, I said, true gold fears no fire. Well, be careful. Don't get the email of like you did from CY Leung with the correction mode and don't forward it. Today, Hong Kong is in shatters, and you blame it on the public and also us who would like to get at the truth. Just now, many loyalists said we did not do anything about this. We did not do anything. We proposed many solutions, including a one-off discussion with Taiwan and also other ways to amend the bill. Were you in agreement with us? Lastly, Junius Ho, I must spend some time on him. This is so laughable. He is the master of violence, but he condemned violence. I think he is the least qualified person to do it. He said that there should be killing without mercy, and then there was the July 21st incident. It is so laughable when he comes out to condemn violence. He says there should be a comprehensive investigation, and what we are proposing, because we are investigating the individual incidents, that's not satisfactory. Of course, we know the Pope is Catholic, but if Carrie Lam were willing, why would we have to do this? If you are so smart, why don't you come up with your own motion? So lastly, President, loyalists, true gold fears no fire. Return innocence to the executive, return justice to the loyalists. Please support the 3 motions, and I hope the members of the public will see how they vote and then take them to task. Thank you.
Ms. Dr. Priscilla Leung, any point of order that you would like to raise? I think I would like to correct what Mr. Andrew WAN has said. What do you mean by cheating? Are you, well, this council now votes on the motion moved by Mr. Andrew WAN earlier. I now put a question to you that Mr. Andrew WAN's motion be passed. Mr. Andrew WAN claims a division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
易建明議員，
Mr. Frankie Yik, I want to declare my interest as a member of the IPCC.
張華峰議員，
Mr. Zhang, I want to declare my interest as the Deputy Chairman of IPCC.
開始表決。
Please proceed to vote.
請核對所作嘅表決。如果冇問題，
Please swear you have a vote. If there's no question, voting is now closed and the result displayed. SC members, 29 present, 9 for, 17 against, 2 abstained. GC members, 29 present, 14 for, 15 against. The question is not agreed by a majority of each of the 2 groups of members present. I declare the motion negative. Mr. Jeremy TAM, you may move your motion. President, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. I now put a question to you that Mr. Jeremy TAM's motion be passed. Mr. Jeremy TAM claims the division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
開始表。
Please proceed to vote. Please verify your votes. If there's no question, voting is now closed and the result displayed. FC members 31 present, 9 for, 18 against, 3 abstain. GC members 29 present, 14 for, 15 against. The question is not agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion negatived. Dr. KWOK, you may move your motion. Personally, I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. I propose the question to you that Dr. KWOK's motion be passed. Dr. KWOK claims a division. The division bell will ring for 5 minutes.
開始表。
Please proceed to vote.
請核對所。
Please verify your votes. If there's no question, voting is now closed and the result displayed. FC members 31 present, 9 for, 18 against, 3 abstain. GC members 30 present, 14 for, 16 against. The question is not agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion negative. Members, this is the last meeting, council meeting in 2019. I hope you can all put aside your work and spend more time with your families. And I also wish Hong Kong people a peaceful Christmas and a very happy New Year. I adjourn the council. We will resume on the 8th of January. We start at 11 a.m. Wednesday. Thank you.